In this forecast, several rounds of storms that may even be severe will bring the potential for flash flooding. Some areas even may see as much as 8 inches of rain over the next couple of days. The Weather Prediction Center has issued a moderate risk for flash flooding in West Virginia. Everything that you need to know is coming right up. Hey everybody, welcome back to a max velocity weather forecast, and today what we're going over is that severe weather potential as well as the extreme flash flooding potential over the next 48 to 72 hours. I'm going to give you the latest breakdown of what you need to know in this forecast. Let's hop right into the severe weather though for today. There is actually a marginal threat for severe weather across portions of the central and as well as the northern plains. It really only includes Nebraska, back up through Iowa and southern Minnesota. The main threats will likely just be damaging winds, maybe a little bit of isolated large hail. But I cannot rule out maybe an isolated little spin up that might occur into like maybe a little brief tornado. Not out of the question today. There's also another marginal threat of severe weather that will be basically ongoing for the next several days because of a stationary front back out into the East Coast. This will include areas from Missouri back over to the Carolinas into Virginia. Now, overall, lower threats for every single day. However, flash flooding will be a concern. Here's a look at the timing this afternoon for those up in Nebraska. You can start to see some showers and storms beginning to develop. And again, there will actually be a pretty decent amount of storms. I may actually go live for this, but I definitely clear out a few storms that could be severe. Again, isolated large hail and damaging winds not out of the question. By 8 to 9 o'clock, areas like North Platte as well as Kearney are going to start to see some storms. Eventually by 10 to 11 o'clock, most storm activity will start to shift down into Kansas. I'm not expecting a whole lot in terms of severe weather down that direction. Here's a look at the ongoing threat for today. We'll see, again, a lot of storms out back in Virginia as well as North Carolina. A lot of these will produce mainly damaging winds. Carolina, a little bit of quarter-sized hail. Due to how much storm activity we'll see and how much moisture there is, there could definitely be a potential for some flash flooding. Again, more details on that in just a second. Eventually going to the overnight hours, we'll start to see again more showers and storms ongoing, and heading into Wednesday, it's going to be the same story for the most part. More storm activity overall, not nearly to the extent as what we'll see today, but it will likely increase again going into Thursday. Here's a look at the flash flooding potential, by the way, over the next several days. This includes tomorrow. There's actually a moderate risk of flash flooding across areas like West Virginia, slight risk outside of that. Now, what does a moderate risk mean? It actually means at least a 40% chance within a 25-mile radius of flash flooding, so it is a pretty significant risk out that direction. Again, if there is any waters covering the roads and you cannot see the road physically, do not go into the water. Turn around, don't drown if you're in any of these situations. That goes for any area inside any of these risks for flash flooding as well. Also, heading into the following day, you can start to see another moderate risk of flash flooding. It does not really shift much. It's going to really stay there in Virginia, again, West Virginia. Also, a slight risk. It starts to extend back out to the west into Missouri as well as Arkansas. So again, flash flooding a big concern. Here's like the rainfall totals over the next 7 days across areas like the Central Plains, and many areas, even Oklahoma, are going to see some pretty beneficial rainfall. So a lot of good news here overall. Unfortunately, though, some of these areas, like you can see southeast Colorado, western Kansas, they could see a little bit more than just a beneficial rainfall. They could definitely see the potential for a little bit of flash flooding. Also, heading into West Virginia, again, this is where the area where we could see some significant rainfall over the next 5 days. It's currently forecasted that we could see as much as 6 inches of rain. I cannot rule out, though, locally or heavier amounts in those areas. And again, 6 inches is just not what we need in West Virginia right now. They've already had plenty of rainfall. This is obviously just going to add to the totals at this point. Going back over to Kentucky, you can see areas between 2 to 4 inches. A lot of areas, though, you can see in especially Kentucky between 3 to 5. I definitely care a lot, again, isolated amounts higher than that, as high as maybe 6 to 7, maybe even 8 inches of rain, depending on what happens over the next few days. Also, over the next really 5 days, again, over in Kansas, a lot of rainfall, again, beneficial to some. Others down in southwestern Kansas specifically, not nearly as beneficial, unfortunately. We're talking 4 to 5 inches. Again, flash flooding potential is definitely not out of the question there. Here's just a look across the Ohio Valley as well as down into the Dixie Valley area. You can just see over the next several days, storm activity is just going to keep on going, and that's the really big concern with the stationary front really just kind of firing up all these storms. The stationary front really just kind of keeping everybody up here for the most part dry, and down this direction it's just a lot of rainfall. So unfortunately, that's kind of what we're looking at over the next several days. But however, there is a little bit of good news to really some of this, not all of it, but a little bit of good news. Today, at least, or tomorrow, excuse me, temperatures across the southern plains, you can see, especially in Oklahoma, still in the low to mid 100s, but elsewhere it's actually looking fairly nice, especially across areas in the northern plains through the northeast and as well as into the Ohio Valley. A lot of us only in the 70s and 80s today or tomorrow, as well as even today. And also heading into Friday, it's gonna be a little bit of a different story. We're gonna have to start to see that little cold front dip down. That'll bring temperatures down, especially even in Oklahoma, down into the 80s and upper 70s for some locations. I know a lot of you guys are waiting for some relief over there in Oklahoma. Unfortunately, those for North Texas, they're not really gonna see much much relief at all. Actually, going into Saturday is probably going to be slightly cooler, but not by much. Still upper 90s for them. Overall, though, across the southeast, temperatures across the region still going to be in the mid 90s. It's going to be a hot one down that direction. Heading into Monday, it all turns back to normal, really normal for this time of the summer at least. A lot of the areas across the Great Plains, all in the 90s or hundreds. Across Midwest will be still in the mid 80s, a little bit nice still, and also across areas like the Ohio Valley, as well as Dixie Valley, some of those areas still in the mid to upper 80s, so a little bit nicer down that direction as well. A little bit of relief, at least for this weekend. Again, make sure to stay up there with Max Velocity here on our YouTube page for the latest. This forecast is brought to you by Button Contracting and All Dense Repair.